We're now at 712 North, 710 Sam, where you want to
On July 18, 1984, a Wednesday afternoon, 21 people were killed at a McDonald's, a chain best known for its birthday parties and its smiling clown mascot.
It was the worst mass shooting in U.S. history at the time, and tonight,
It is one of 10 incidents examined here that took place inside American restaurants, drawn from court records, CDC outbreak data, and news coverage from the time rather than online rumor. The first is largely a story of embarrassment. Number 10, a rumor about fried chicken that has circulated for decades. Since at least the 1970s, a story has circulated about someone biting into a piece of fried chicken and finding it was a rodent. Folklorists traced versions of the claim back decades, predating fast food entirely. The claim kept attaching itself to Kentucky Fried Chicken, partly because breaded, deep-fried meat can resemble almost anything once bitten into, and partly because the company's name lent itself to the joke. In 2000, a version of the claim known as Chicken McNoggin was investigated by the Washington Post and by Snopes and found to be false. In 2009, a man in Atlanta sued KFC in court, testifying under oath that he had bitten into a fried mouse. The case went to trial and KFC won. In June of 2015, a security guard in Wilmington, California, posted photos to Facebook claiming he had found a deep-fried rat in a box of chicken tenders and said publicly that he planned to hire a lawyer. KFC asked for the item back for independent testing. He declined to hand it over. When the item was eventually analyzed, it turned out to be an oddly shaped piece of hand-breaded chicken. KFC called the claim a hoax and asked for a public apology. Number 9, a prank video that led to criminal charges and reshaped a company's marketing. In April of 2009, 2 Domino's employees in Conover, North Carolina, filmed themselves inside the store. One employee put cheese up his nose before placing it on a sandwich, sneezed on food, and wiped a sponge across his skin before using it to clean dishes. His co-worker filmed the video, stating on camera that the food was going out to paying customers. They posted the footage to YouTube, where it drew over 1 million views within days and became international news. Domino's fired both employees immediately. Police charged them with felony food tampering. Domino's president posted a video apology within 48 hours.
Recently, we discovered a video of 2 Domino's team members who thought that their acts would be a funny YouTube hoax. We sincerely apologize for this incident.
In 2010, both employees pleaded guilty to lesser charges and received probation. Domino's maintained that the tainted food never reached a customer. The felony charge did not depend on that outcome. It addressed what the employees had filmed themselves doing and preparing to serve. Number 8, a staged claim that a human finger was found in a bowl of chili. On March 22, 2005, Ana Ayala said she had bitten into a human finger inside a bowl of Wendy's chili in San Jose, California. The story spread internationally within days. Wendy's maintained that nothing on its end had put the finger there, and investigators soon agreed. Wendy's cooks its chili at 170 degrees for 3 hours, and the finger showed no signs of having been cooked. Investigators determined that Ayala's husband, Jaime Plascencia, had obtained the finger from a coworker who had lost it in a workplace accident. Ayala placed it in the chili herself and later described the incident on television, calling it sickening and disgusting. The criminal complaint against her put the company's losses at over $2.5 million. Other estimates ran higher once layoffs at Northern California franchises were factored in. Both Ayala and Plascencia pleaded guilty. Superior Court Judge Edward Davila, at sentencing, said on the record that greed and avarice had overtaken the couple. Ayala was sentenced to 9 years, later reduced to 4 on appeal. Ayala was banned for life from every Wendy's location. Number 7. A listeria outbreak linked to 3 deaths that the company allegedly concealed. Blue Bell creameries had operated for more than 100 years without a single product recall. In February of 2015, health inspectors in South Carolina found Listeria bacteria during a routine sample of the company's chocolate chip cookie sandwiches. The CDC linked the outbreak to 5 patients at a hospital in Wichita, Kansas, who were already hospitalized for unrelated conditions when the infection worsened their situation. 3 of them died. Genetic testing showed the bacteria matched illnesses dating back to 2010, indicating the contamination had likely been present in Blue Bell's plants for roughly 5 years before it was identified. By April of 2015, Blue Bell had recalled every product from every facility it operated, its first recall in 108 years in business. More than 8 million gallons of ice cream were destroyed, and production stopped for 4 months. More than a third of the company's workforce was laid off, and the shutdown left Blue Bell in a financial position that required a dilutive private equity investment to continue operating. Federal prosecutors later alleged that in February of 2015, before any public recall and before regulators or customers were informed, Blue Bell's CEO had employees quietly remove potentially contaminated product from store shelves without explaining the reason. In 2020, the company pleaded guilty to federal charges and paid $17.5 million in criminal penalties. The former CEO was separately charged in connection with the alleged cover-up. Number 6. A hepatitis A outbreak traced to green onions that led to thousands of emergency treatments. In September and October of 2003, a Chi-Chi's restaurant inside the Beaver Valley Mall in Monica, Pennsylvania, served chili con queso and mild salsa made with green onions imported from farms in Mexico. The onions were carrying hepatitis A. More than 650 people were infected, including at least 13 of the restaurant's own employees. At least 3 people died of liver failure, with some reports putting the number at 4. More than 9,000 people who had eaten at the restaurant or been exposed to someone who had received emergency immune globulin shots, since hepatitis A has an incubation period of nearly a month, and many infected people had no symptoms for weeks. Emergency room doctors in Beaver County identified the spike in cases before state health officials did, which is typical in outbreaks of this kind. Confirmed cases reached 130 by November 7th. 4 days later, the count stood at 240, and by November 14th, it reached 500, with 3 deaths from liver failure confirmed by that point. This remains the largest single restaurant hepatitis A outbreak recorded in the United States. The restaurant closed within weeks and never reopened. The Chi-Chi's chain, already in financial difficulty before the outbreak, filed for bankruptcy and closed every location in the country by early 2004. Number 5. 3 separate outbreaks in 1 year that left a lasting mark on the company's reputation. 2015 brought a series of food safety incidents for Chipotle. A salmonella outbreak in Minnesota sickened around 64 people in August. An E. coli outbreak followed that fall, eventually spreading across 11 states. 6 initially, then 9, then 11, then 14, once a second strain was included. The CDC confirmed 55 illnesses tied to the first strain, and a second, genetically distinct E. coli strain caused 5 more illnesses across 3 additional states. In December, a norovirus outbreak near Boston College sickened more than 140 students. Chipotle voluntarily closed 43 restaurants across Oregon and Washington as a precaution. After a 3-month investigation involving the CDC and the FDA, no specific ingredient was ever identified as the source, and the outbreak was declared over. The financial impact was substantial. Chipotle's stock traded above $750 a share in August of 2015 and had fallen to around $493 by December, a drop of about 35% from its peak. Same-store sales fell by as much as 22% in the worst weeks, and the company said it could no longer reliably forecast the following year's sales. Chipotle estimated the direct cost of handling the first outbreak, including lab work, replaced food, and outside consultants, at $6 to $8 million. A 2024 study by researchers at the University of Illinois and Purdue found that after 2015, Chipotle's stock and media coverage became permanently more sensitive to food safety news. Minor single-location incidents that would previously have gone unnoticed began reliably making national headlines and affecting the stock. That sensitivity was still evident in market reactions as recently as this past July, more than a decade after the original outbreaks. When the CDC announced in early 2016 that both outbreaks were over, Chipotle's shares rose 4% in a single day, reflecting how much concern had already been factored into the stock price. Number 4. 4 children died in an E. coli outbreak that came to public attention during a presidential inauguration. Between December of 1992 and February of 1993, undercooked hamburger patties served at 73 Jack in the Box locations across Washington, California, Idaho, and Nevada infected 732 people with E. coli 0157H7. 178 people developed severe complications and 4 children died. Survivors were left with permanent kidney and brain damage, with some requiring dialysis for the rest of their lives. In Washington state alone, more than 400 people were confirmed infected. 144 were hospitalized, and 30 developed hemolytic uremic syndrome, a life-threatening kidney complication. Idaho reported 14 confirmed cases and 1 death. California reported 6 confirmed cases, with 7 children developing hemolytic uremic syndrome and 1 death. Nevada reported 58 people meeting the case definition. The outbreak stemmed from a supply chain issue affecting 4 states, rather than a single contaminated batch in one location. The outbreak became public the same week Bill Clinton was sworn in as president, and it was raised at his first cabinet meeting. Jack in the Box's president, Robert Nugent, held a press conference attributing the outbreak to the meat supplier, Vaughn's Companies, and to the state health department's rollout of new cooking temperature rules. Riley Detweiler, the 4th child to die, became a prominent figure in the crisis after his parents appeared at a televised town hall with President Clinton. A year later, the USDA declared this strain of E. coli an official adulterant in ground beef, a regulatory change that altered meat inspection standards in the United States. 22 documented E. coli outbreaks had occurred in the country before this one without prompting a change in the law. This outbreak did. Number 3. 23 people were killed during a Boss's Day lunch rush at a Texas cafeteria. On October 16, 1991, in Killeen, Texas, near Fort Hood, one of the largest military bases in the country, a man named George Hennard drove his pickup truck through the front window of a Luby's cafeteria during the lunch rush. The crowd was larger than usual because it was Boss's Day. Diners had only a second or two to register that a truck had crashed through the wall before Hennard got out with 2 9mm pistols and began shooting. Witnesses said he shouted that this was what Belton, his hometown, had done to him. Over the next several minutes, he fired roughly 96 shots, killing 23 people and wounding dozens more. A responding police officer eventually shot and wounded Hennard, who then killed himself. Investigators found he still had 2 fully loaded magazines on him when he died. One survivor, a chiropractor named Susanna Grecha, had a clear shot at Hennard while his back was turned, but her gun was in her car. Texas law at the time did not allow her to carry it inside a restaurant. She later became a state legislator and a prominent advocate for changing that law, which Texas did 4 years later. At the time, this was the deadliest mass shooting by a single gunman in modern American history. It held that record for 16 years, until the Virginia Tech shooting. It remains the deadliest non-school mass shooting in American history. Number 2. A customer disarmed a mass shooter with his bare hands at a Waffle House. On April 22, 2018, Travis Reinking, wearing only a green jacket, opened fire outside and then inside a Waffle House near Nashville, Tennessee, using an AR-15 style rifle. He killed 4 people: Waffle House employee Torian Sanderlin and customers Joe Perez, Akala Da Silva, and DeEbony Groves. 4 more people were injured, 2 by gunfire and 2 by shattered glass. A customer named James Shaw Jr. had taken cover near the restrooms when the shooting began. When Reinking paused to reload, Shaw rushed him, grabbed the hot barrel of the rifle with his bare hands, wrestled it away, and threw it over the counter. Reinking fled, still partially undressed and having dropped a jacket loaded with additional ammunition, and was caught after a manhunt lasting about a day and a half. A Metro Nashville police spokesperson told reporters on the record that Shaw was a hero and had saved a number of lives. Shaw raised over $227,000 for the victims' families within about 2 weeks. He later said he was not a hero, describing himself as a father who regularly struggled to get his 4-year-old daughter to bed, and said that experience was the only preparation he had. The Nashville Predators brought Shaw out for a standing ovation before a playoff game days later, and the Department of Justice later gave him its Special Courage Award in Washington. At trial, Reinking's defense argued he should be found not guilty by reason of insanity, citing schizophrenia. The jury rejected the argument and convicted him on every count. He received a sentence of life without parole, with no possibility of release. Number 1. 21 people were killed in a 77-minute shooting at a McDonald's in San Ysidro, California, near the border with Mexico. The attack took place on July 18, 1984. 2 days earlier, a 41-year-old man named James Huberty had called a mental health clinic seeking an appointment. The receptionist misspelled his last name while recording his information, and no one called him back. On the morning of the attack, he took his wife and daughters to the San Diego Zoo and stopped for lunch at a different McDonald's before heading toward the one he would later attack. That afternoon, he told his wife he was going hunting for humans. She did not stop him and later said she had not known what he intended to do. He then entered the McDonald's carrying an Uzi-style carbine, a shotgun, and a handgun, and opened fire on the lunchtime crowd. Victims ranged in age from 4 months to 74 years old. It took 77 minutes and a police sniper to end the shooting. 21 people were killed and 19 more were wounded. At the time, it was the deadliest mass shooting by a lone gunman in American history. It remains the deadliest mass shooting in California history more than 4 decades later. McDonald's demolished the restaurant afterward and later donated the land, where a memorial now stands. A documentary made years later took its title from the 77 minutes it took police to end the attack. Its filmmaker said making the film changed how he viewed the world decades on.